So what's innovation involve? I think it involves three key things. One is it is problem solving, although that problem solving can come in a number of styles, all the way from collaborator to integrator to leader. Collaborator kind of suggests to me that you've got a lot of equals with ideas and experience that you're trying to bring together to find a new or fresh approach to something. The integrator is basically taking some existing ideas or technologies and trying to put them together. And then the leader is actually out there trying to drive the creation of these new ideas. It's about change management. And I think change management is really focused, it's all about attitude. You've got to somehow get the organization to feel that change is an opportunity and not a threat. To the extent you can do that, you can keep people comfortable with trying things and failing from time to time, and picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and moving on. And then there's also a built-in natural tension, I think, between the drive for efficiency and standards and innovation and change. I think we all have these built-in default processes that are trying to consolidate, standardize, try to find the norm. Those are usually about saving money, driving efficiency into the way you deliver things, as opposed to innovation and change, which generally is disruptive. It's trying to change things up, decentralize things. And I think an organization needs to do both, but it's trying to find a balance between those that is the real key. And then there's the relationship between growth and innovation. If you're in a private sector company, and I suspect even if you're in a government agency or an academic institution, you can't stand still. However you're measured, it better be bigger or better or faster next year, or you quickly become irrelevant. And so in the private sector anyway, we're constantly trying to balance top-line revenue and bottom-line cost, and that natural tension kind of comes back into play there. The top-line growth really comes one of two ways. You're either trying to deliver more of the same, you do what you do, you're just doing it for more folks, or you're trying to find new offerings. And these new offerings really is where the innovation piece comes back in, and you need to do that to grow and be successful over time. So cost-cutting and efficiency can help us weather a downturn like we've seen the last few years in the economy. But if that's all you're doing, you eventually put yourself out of business because you become irrelevant. You've got to keep finding ways to bring energy and new ideas into what you bring to your market. So only real sustained growth can ensure your long-term survival as an organization, and that requires innovation. Again, if I could quote a recent study that I saw that Gartner produced is about how you balance these things, growth and innovation and cost and risk. And the relevance here is I think it really sets up some of the examples I want to talk about now, is that one mistake that most organizations make is to think of disruptive innovation as focusing solely on growth through new products or services and revenues. However, innovation can also be very effective when aimed at radical cost-cutting through process redesign, IT restructuring, or other non-revenue generating actions. And I think the relevance of that statement to me is a lot of the things I've seen happen over my career anyway really are about finding creative ways to reduce costs, because if you're a cost center, which I've spent most of my life being, any dollar I don't spend goes right to the bottom line. It's if I save $1, it's pretty much the equivalent of making $10 in revenue. So there's good leverage there. So what I'd like to do now is spend a couple of minutes talking about three examples of places I've been and where I've seen what, and I don't mean this in any pejorative way, but these are normal people who were put in a situation with clear direction from their leadership and the support to get things done, who really made substantial improvements in the way that activity worked and served its environment. Once upon a time in life long ago, far, far away, I worked for Secretary Hazel O'Leary. Some of you may remember her from the Department of Energy. And she picked a fairly famous fight with Congress, and Congress was thinking about actually disestablishing the department. She went in and made a counteroffer. Well, first of all, her position was, well, what's the benefit of doing this? And they were going to save all this money. So she says, tell you what, I'll save twice that much, and you leave the department alone. So that was the deal. And then she came back and told the headquarters staff that we were going to reduce the headquarters staff by 50%. That's how we were going to pay for it. Now, most of us would think, okay, how are we going to function if we, I mean, it's a big cut. It's not 5%, it's not 10%. We had 2 years to reduce our size by 50%. So here, along comes Woody Hall. I'm their first Klinger-Cohen CIO. I had just arrived there from working for the Air Force for 23 years. Very decentralized culture, strong local politics. Common joke in those days was a direction from the headquarters was an invitation to debate. So it was very, very decentralized place. We were in the midst of, remember Malcolm Baldrige and total quality management? We were trying to do that and be more customer-focused, better service organization. And oh, by the way, you need to cut your budget by 50% and cut your staff by 50% and get your customer satisfaction ratings up. Now that sounds kind of like Mission Impossible, except over 2 years we did it. And we did it with the same people who were there. We put a big focus on helping displaced people find other appropriate work, and I'd have to say we did that for all but one fellow who decided he didn't want us to help him, and then he came back about 6 months later and said it was the best thing that ever happened to him because he found out what he really wanted to do. So there was very little personal damage in these reductions. We reduced our O&M costs by $265 million. The one that's still surprising to me today is we actually had a focused initiative on reducing policies. We had all these written policies that created lots of mother may I kind of bureaucracy. We got rid of 75% of those policies. And what happened was our customer satisfaction ratings went up. So we were grading ourselves. We had these systems in place to get feedback about how folks liked what we were doing, how they agreed with what we were doing. And so it was a scale from 1 to 5. I think when we started, we were somewhere down in the high 2s, low 3s, and by the time we finished, we were in the mid 4s. And this is after reducing your operating costs by 50% and getting rid of all this control structure that we thought was absolutely essential. It turned out it didn't matter much to our users or our effectiveness at all. And so how did that happen? Well, I think there were 3 things really. One is we had top cover. I mean, this came from the secretary down. So the senior folks were all on board with doing these things, and they were providing the motivation and encouragement to move forward with this. It did cause us to put a stronger emphasis on customer service. We did a lot of training. We helped our folks learn how to communicate better, how to be more sensitive to how people perceived us, and that helped in lots of ways. And we created a consensus-building council, which we really hadn't had before, where the users actually got a strong, regular voice into what we did and how we did it and what the priorities were. It made a huge difference.